Howdy, howdy, my friend. Welcome back. It's a privilege to have you here today. We're going to dive into a new section today. There won't be any meditating or any practices. There'll be exercise, though, and some reflection. So, as we enter this next phase of the journey, we've had an opportunity to do a lot of meditating, a lot of inner exploring. We just worked through the entire chakra system and practice for balancing the chakras. And now we're going to move into just a different dimension of ourselves. And we're going to start to look at more our mental life and our intellectual life. And my intention with this next section is to really stretch your mind a little bit, stretch you philosophically, intellectually, to help maybe make your mind a little more pliable, a little bit more flexible and adaptable, and break up any kind of rigidity that may be holding us back from recognizing potential in ourselves, recognizing potential in the world, or also stuff that might keep us from seeing ourselves and the world around us a little bit more clearly. So we've talked a lot about truth and honesty and authenticity. And so now we're going to dive into kind of the world of thoughts and the intellect to see how they can shape our experiences. And I think most importantly, what we're going to do in this deconditioning section, maybe it's more appropriate to call it an unlearning section. A friend of mine likes to call it unlearning. What we're going to look at here is just how and in what ways perhaps our point of view, our perspective, our individual intellect is shaping our experiences. And again, how that may or may not be getting in the way of us experiencing more truth about ourselves and more truth about the world around us. So this is a really important, and actually it's one of my favorite aspects of this process, to be honest with you, because I love to challenge ideas and I love challenging myself to see things more clearly. I like to become aware of my own BS. I like to become aware of my own, rose-colored glasses that I'm putting on, or whatever blinders, that I've kind of put up or have maybe even been influenced to be put up in me. I like confronting and breaking those things down. And sometimes that's a very uncomfortable process for people. It can be very confronting. It sometimes kind of throws us into existential crisis because some of our ideas and our beliefs about ourselves, about humanity, and about God or the divine, those things are some of the things that we cling to the deepest, right? When it comes to our existence, it literally is the foundation of our reality in a mental and intellectual, in a perceptual sense. So challenging that, uprooting it, shaking it up, turning it upside down and looking at it from a different perspective, that can be very confronting. So I just want to say that just know that going into this, that this is a process that we really want to wade into with a really big open heart and with a really big open mind, and understand that we might ask some questions. I'm going to work through a couple questions here today with you. And then if you haven't picked up the Awakening Soul Force book, I highly recommend picking it up and working through the deconditioning experiment section there, because, or the deconditioning kind of thought experiment, because there are more questions and it goes a little bit deeper than what we're going to dive into today. I've kind of boiled it down into the core, of what I feel like I can get across in this video and in this course, and it'll be plenty of work for you. Trust me, it'll be plenty challenging and confronting by really analyzing these things in an honest way. So just know that the deconditioning process is a confronting process, because sometimes it really does challenge us and challenge sometimes the foundation of our beliefs, the thoughts, the stilts that we have propped, our entire existence, our identity, our ego, our actions, the justification for how we show up and are in the world can all be confronted here. So with that being said, we're going to talk about sponsoring thoughts. And a sponsoring thought is essentially a philosophical thought. It's like a seed that has been planted, that has sprouted and grown, and it's basically the seed or the soil from which all the other thoughts kind of are informed by. To give you an example, let's take two sponsoring thoughts. Let's take the sponsoring thought that human beings by their very nature are evil, that they are born evil. They are born in sin, let's say. That's one sponsoring thought. Now, the polar opposite thought of that sponsoring thought might be, well, all human beings are inherently good. Human beings are inherently divine. Two very different sponsoring thoughts. And why they're important is that idea influences and impacts all the other thoughts that come around ourselves, around humanity, and maybe even around God. So if I have the root thought or the sponsoring thought that all human beings are evil, that is the lens then, that is the soil which all other experiences and seeds are planted. And so it kind of, our experience then is shaped by this idea that all human beings are evil. So then I see things going on out in the world, and my immediate, where I go, where I'm seeing it, for the perspective I'm seeing, the eyes I'm seeing it with are, ooh, that's coming from a dark and evil place. Oh, that person said that thing, this must be ill-intentioned. Oh, those people are doing those things, they must be not trustworthy, because all human beings are evil. Does that make sense? Now, on the other side of it, you can go, all human beings are inherently good, and that shifts and changes the entire perspective. Then the lens that we're looking at everything with makes things look very different. So we can look at the same event with two different sponsoring thoughts that have kind of shaped and formed and influenced the lens that we see the world with, and we're going to see two completely different things. So the one person's saying, ooh, those people are doing evil things. This is they're intentionally trying to keep you down. Other people might look at it and say, well, people are inherently good. I think that they're just unconscious and unaware. I don't think that they mean to do that. And those are two very different perspectives, perhaps on the same exact event. I'm not saying either one is right or wrong. And I want to emphasize that in this experience here, is I'd really like to encourage you to try and remove the ideas, the value judgments from the equation. We're not thinking about, contemplating, or reflecting on right and wrong. We are contemplating and reflecting on our sponsoring thoughts or our root thoughts, and looking at how that might shape our perspective on ourselves. It might shape our experiences, how it might shape the perspective on humanity and our relationship to humanity. And it also might impact our view or relationship to the divine or to God. Is this making sense? So this is a thought experiment. This deconditioning thought experiment is really about stretching our mind, stretching our philosophical capabilities, and becoming more philosophically pliable, not being so locked in on a particular perspective. And again, we're removing value judgments. It's not even about right or wrong. It's not even about good or bad necessarily. Or whatever those mean, right? It's like we're just trying to kind of do some mental gymnastics and shake up our perspective a little bit in hopes that it creates some space for us to maybe have some fresh experiences. In Zen, they talk about beginner's mind, and this is something that really stuck with me for a long time, and we'll talk about it again in other chapters here. But beginner's mind is like blank slate. And so one of the things I try to do, I'm not going to say I'm great at it. I think I'm pretty decent. It's a practice. But is like, as much as we can we experience the world every day, every moment with a fresh set of eyes? Perhaps without the influence of these sponsoring thoughts, or even the experiences that we've had in the past. Can we be open to the moment and what was coming through, the energy of the now, without projecting any ideas or prejudices or constructs that actually get in the way of having an experience of something as it is right now, including ourselves. So the conceit of this course is about awakening the truth within and connecting to our loving truth. And that's going to have a profound impact on our view of ourselves and the world around us. So we're talking about truth here. Can we get to something as it really is? Well, to get there, we have to look at what veils have we placed over our eyes? What colored glasses have we put on? Where have they come from? And how do they impact and influence the way we experience the world? So I have some questions for you. Okay, I have them written down here. So I want you to work with these questions, and that will be your deconditioning thought experiment. And if you really want to do the deep dive, grab the Awakening Soul Force book and go through the questions, because there's questions related to each of these subjects that we're going to look at. So I'm going to encourage you to, in your own time and in your own way, to get into a quiet space. And I am going to encourage you to get into and perform the Soul Force Field meditation. Get into that space so that we can kind of get a clear, grounded space. And also in an open space that will allow things to come forward. Okay, we don't have to be super heady about this. It doesn't have to be a really rigorous intellectual task. We can allow these ideas and these thoughts and these experiences, impressions, to emerge from within, so we don't have to work too hard. You can if you want. Again, I'm not telling you what to do. It's just my recommendation. Get into a meditation and ask yourself, what is my sponsoring thought about myself? What is the root and core belief I have about myself that wants to come forward? So look at that. If you were to get all the way down into, what do you think about yourself? What's that core fundamental belief about who you are? What is it? So we're confronting this. So the beginning, I asked, who am I? What is my loving truth? And more often than not, do I live in alignment with my loving truth? Now we're actually going to get in there and try to figure this out a little bit. Well, who am I? What is the thought that I hold about myself? Because thoughts become things. Thoughts are energy. Thoughts are creative. Thoughts can influence and impact biological process. Thoughts can influence to say things. They can influence us to say things that set matters into motion, that shape relationships, that drive people away, that drive them closer to us, that help us create, that isolate us. So these thoughts are important. What is your sponsoring thought about yourself? And then you're also going to ask this question about, what is your sponsoring thought about humanity? Do you generally think humanity is good? Do you think it's bad? Do you think it's unconscious? Do you think we're all divine beings? Do you think humanity is totally screwed? Do you think that humanity has potential to do more? Whatever it is, what's the core fundamental belief do you hold? What do you hold? What fundamental belief or idea do you hold about humanity? Get to the bottom of that, because from that little seedling sprouts a tree that bears all kinds of fruit. And if we think humanity is fundamentally evil, then we're going to probably see in our experience a lot of evil. We're going to see a lot of things to mistrust. If we think that humanity is fundamentally good, we're going to see a lot of good things, a lot of beautiful things. And if fundamentally we feel like there's a neutral sense about what humanity is, then we're probably going to see a mix of both. And I'm not going to tell you what I think. I want you to get into what you think and what you believe. And then how does that shape your experiences, your perceptions of yourself, humanity? And then finally, what is your sponsoring and root thought about God? If God's a loving God, if the universal consciousness is loving and kind, there's a different experience of the divine there than if we think, ooh, God is a spiteful, angry, vengeful God. God's pissed. Our relationship and our experience of God and the divine is going to be very different. Do we think God's kind of just kind of meh, not apathetic, but maybe neutral in God's view of humanity? Then, well, what kind of experience come from that? So look at your own experiences, look at your own thoughts. Come to, what is your sponsoring thought about yourself, about humanity, and about God? So just get to that line. We don't even have to, we're not digging deeper yet. Once you've kind of got your thought, write it down, journal it, work with it. Now we're going to work with it. Well, where did this thought come from? So now that we're in meditation, we can ask that question. Well, where did this thought come from? Meditate on it and see if you can pinpoint where this thought sort of took root, So if we think of our experiences and the words and the thoughts and the creations that kind of go out into the universe, we think of every one of those things as a seed, and that they land on the soil of our consciousness. So everything we've ever kind of soaked up in our experience, in some way is a seed, and then our consciousness is like the soil. Well, can we, we're exposed to a lot of different things. So what took root and when? And see if you can meditate on and pinpoint, where did this idea take root? For example, for me personally, there was some people pleasing in me that I identified along this journey. I was able to pinpoint in my work, my experience as a child actor was overall a very positive experience. Loving, supportive parents, wonderful people that I worked with. I had a lot of fun doing it, but also just by nature of the business, there was a lot of rejection. At 6, 7, 8 years old, I didn't necessarily understand the business of it. I just knew that I had fun doing things. People said that they liked me. People said that they wanted to pick me, but sometimes they wouldn't pick me. That was confusing. So there was a sort of a fundamental like self-worth and a people-pleasing thing that I identified in myself that came from that experience, and that came through my work. Getting into meditation, asking, where did this come from? Asking my awareness, asking consciousness to lead me to, where did this thought take root? And that for me was what I identified. So as you work through, what is your sponsoring or root thought about yourself? What is your sponsoring or root thought about humanity? What is your sponsoring or root thought about God? Then go through and in meditation ask, where did this come from? Help me understand the moment that this took root. We might have a memory of being in church and the pastor telling us we were going to go to hell if we did that. Or you're evil, you were born in sin, and all this guilt and shame all of a sudden washed over and through our little, joyful child body, and our little soul ached and hurt as we were told God needs you to do these things because you're evil at your core. If you ask me, that's pretty traumatic. And a lot of people in a lot of different faiths, I think, have had that experience. Not saying it's yours, but it could be. So can you meditate on and kind of pinpoint where was the moment that this took root? And then as we take the next steps, we're going to ask the question, well, what does my experience tell me? What does my experience tell me? Have I had direct experiences that are in alignment with this root thought, this sponsoring thought? But also, have I had experiences that contradict this sponsoring thought? Let's go back to the idea of being born in original sin, that you're evil, that you're going to have to do all these things because you're a bad person by nature. Nothing you can do about it. Sorry, it's just the way it is. You're a terrible, awful being. You must repent. And I'm sorry that it's just, at this point in my journey, I've been exposed to that, and it seems so ridiculous to me. There's so many loving people in this world. So anyhow, tangent. So have you had experiences that contradict that? And so there's a part of you that goes, yeah, I guess sometimes maybe I got these thoughts or I've done some bad things, but I care about people too. That's part of my experience. So where does that put me, right? Or maybe you were born into the world and everybody just told you that you walked on water and that you're like Jesus. And you think that you're Jesus. Or that you think you're a saint, right? Or you think that you're God's gift to the earth, which you very much are. Of course, you're a child of God like all of us. And then and you look at this and you think that, you go, yeah, but maybe I've done some shady stuff. Maybe I did some not so nice things. Maybe I did intentionally cause harm. That's a contradiction with that idea or sponsoring thought. Well, okay, then what does that tell us? Again, I'm not telling you to make any value judgments about these things. It's not about right or wrong. It's about the flexibility, about maybe seeing I'll say a dual nature, but not even a dual nature. Maybe it's because it's a spectrum. I feel like sometimes it's not just all one thing. It's not so absolute. We're just trying to open up and break up this idea that we are one way, or that humanity is one way, or that God is one way. Maybe there's just room to evolve our ideas, right? So, have you ever had a direct experience? Have you ever had a direct experience that is in alignment with this thought? Have you ever had direct experiences that contradict the thought? What does that tell you? That's for you to reflect on and to decide. The other thing I think it's helpful to look at is, have I ever noticed myself projecting my thought, inserting it into a situation that it actually didn't belong, it didn't fit? So this is where we become aware of the contradictions. I don't view, at least at this point in my journey, I don't view contradictions as existentially destabilizing. It's a point of growth and evolution, and something we should really look at. When we see that contradiction, when we see something like two things being true at once, we see kind of the paradox of life. Sometimes we look at that really deeply. I think there's juicy stuff in there. So have you ever noticed yourself projecting a root thought in a situation where it didn't belong? For example, you're doing loving things, you're doing kind things from the depths of your heart and your soul, but somewhere in there that thing is creeping and saying, but you're an evil person, you're an evil person, you're an evil person. And then you find yourself, well, now I'm just doing this because I'm trying to make up for being bad. And you're trying to, you're almost forcing your experience and what you're the feelings you're having and the intention from which you're acting, which is a loving place. And then there's that part of the conditioning that's coming in and saying, well, no, actually you're not a good person. You're doing this because you want attention, because you want to feel good. So we're trying to bring to our awareness, and that could be as we reflected on ourselves, and we can do this with humanity too. We could be seeing nice people doing nice things, and we have a view of humanity that it's all evil, and we're saying, those people are up to something. They're up to no good. There's no possible way they're out there feeding the homeless and sheltering them out of the kindness of their hearts. There's something in it for them. That skepticism, that cynicism creeps in, and that's us and the conditioning that we believe that all people are evil. That's that conditioning creeping in and inserting it in a place where we might be at the shelter helping feed and house people, and we're going, this actually feels pretty nice, this feels pretty sincere, and this feels very loving. And then there's that conditioning coming in. Something's up. Don't trust it. You know what I mean? So we're looking for those areas of our life where we project conditioning onto ourselves and onto the world around us, and then also onto God, or our divine source. So how are we projecting, when we're looking at, have we ever had the experience of feeling and sensing and being in an experience, but then still inserting this point of view? I'm not lovable. That could be a sponsoring thought. And you've got somebody that's loving on you, holding you, supporting you, guiding, providing for, and you're going, nope, I'm not lovable. It's impossible that this person loves me because I'm not lovable. That's our conditioning inserting itself and projecting itself into a situation where it doesn't belong. That's not a true experience of what is. That's the mind and our lens distorting the light that is coming into the lens. So look at that. Reflect on it. Spend time in meditation. Ask that honest question. Yeah, where have I projected my conditioning onto a situation where it actually didn't fit? And then this last question, this last investigation that I'll leave you with is it possible there are more experiences, that there's more information out there that warrants me not making or holding a broad view, or even holding a sponsoring thought about myself, or about humanity, or about the divine? So I've placed this question in here. It's kind of a trick question. It's kind of a trick question in that the obvious answer is yes. Of course it's possible that there are experiences out there and that there is information out there that we have not yet been exposed to or are aware of that might help inform our thoughts to either evolve or to just shed them altogether. Essentially, we're asking, is it healthy for me to hold a broad, rigid thought about something? Or are there is there a possibility there are experiences and information in the next moment, tomorrow, a year from now, that are going to come in and might actually illuminate or inspire maybe a different thought or idea? And again, I said it's kind of a trick question because the answer is yes. The answer is yes. The objective answer is yes. Of course it's possible. It's possible that there's new information that'll come in tomorrow about ourselves, about humanity at large, about the divine, about the universe and our place in it, that could shape or influence our perspective further, or just be an experience. And that's what we're working toward. We're working towards that mantra that came in on the Third Eye Center. I love how this course has unfolded because I'm moving through it with you. This has been a cool experience for me too. I didn't plan the messages that came through in each chakra center, but that thing that came into the third eye, that direct experience is the path to truth. That direct experience means being present right now with what's coming in. And part of this deconditioning thought experiment is like, can we allow ourselves and our mind to be flexible and pliable enough to have an experience of the world as it is right now without projecting our point of view on it, without distorting the light and the colors and the image coming in, to our lens? Can we get that lens to be as true and as accurate as of a reflection as possible? Can we get as clear as possible with our inner sight and our inner ears and our heart, our sense of self, our ability to feel and exchange energy in an emotional way, and to have that experience in the physical body? I just worked through the chakras. Can we be a clear enough vessel to have a direct experience of life and ourselves in relationship to it right now? That is the work that we're up to with this deconditioning thought experiment. The intention is to basically break down the walls. So I said that this could be a confronting process. It may or may not lead to some deep questioning about who you are and your place in this world. That's why we're here. That's the beauty and the joy of being on this journey. It's almost like we're an archaeologist, and we're chipping away, right, at like the mud and rock that has been caked over something, right? And as we chip away, we get deeper and deeper. We're getting closer and closer to finding that little nugget, that gold nugget that is our loving truth, our loving awareness, the essence of who we are. The deconditioning process is really chipping away at that in a very conscious way. It makes a big difference. So I'm going to hold space for the exciting part of this journey, for the liberation that comes on the other side of this journey. And I'm also going to hold space for understanding that it takes time to move through this. It's an ongoing process. If you really learn to engage with it, you'll probably never stop challenging yourself and kind of chipping away and saying, is there a prejudice here? Is there conditioning that's creeping in? Am I projecting something into a space that it doesn't belong? It's a good thing. That's a healthy thing. You're becoming a conscious being anchored in the awareness of who and what they are. That's what we're working towards. So give this a shot. Work with the book. Work with the prompts. And share. And this isn't going to be a one-night thing. I hope that you adopt it and it becomes more than anything a lifestyle, really, a way of life and a philosophy. For me, it's been the most healthy part of my journey. And I take a lot of joy, actually, and pleasure in challenging my thoughts and beliefs. All right, my friend, I appreciate you. holding space for your growth, for your evolution, for this deconditioning process. And I look forward to engaging with you along the way. When you're ready, when maybe you feel like you need a little meditation time, we're going to dive into some mindfulness meditation. Again, we're going to work with the realm of the mind and the thoughts in this next meditation, and it's all in service of becoming more aware, more aware, more aware. That's the work we're doing right now. So thank you for being here. When you're ready, I'll see you in the next video. Adios.